Echoes call from hollow halls, a voice that creeps and softly crawls. Time stands still, the air is.
What made this incident so unsettling was how ordinary it looked at first. The Las Vegas Strip is a place built for cameras. Tourists film everything. Creators live stream constantly. Arguments, pranks, and rivalries are often treated as background noise in a city where spectacle is normal. That night, no one standing near the Bellagio fountains expected that a long-running online dispute would cross a line that could never be undone. Rodney Findley and his wife Tanisha Findley were not strangers to the world of online content. They were part of a small circle of YouTube creators who filmed regularly on the Strip, often broadcasting live to audiences who followed their personalities, routines, and occasional disagreements. Like many creators in crowded content spaces, competition played a role. Views mattered. Recognition mattered. Being seen mattered. Over time, what began as rivalry slowly hardened into something more personal. Other creators later explained that tension had been building for more than a year. Videos referenced one another. Arguments spilled from comment sections into real conversations. What many viewers dismissed as typical internet drama was, in reality, growing more volatile behind the scenes. On that night, the conflict was no longer contained by screens. In a busy public space filled with pedestrians and flashing lights, an encounter turned confrontational. Nearby cameras and live streams captured fragments of confusion as people reacted in real time. Then everything changed. Panic spread. Streams abruptly cut off. The Strip, known for music and movement, fell into chaos. Emergency responders arrived quickly. But Rodney and Tanisha Findley did not survive. Their deaths sent shockwaves through the local creator community and far beyond it. What followed was not just grief, but disbelief. Many who had watched these creators online struggled to reconcile the idea that a rivalry fueled by views and attention had ended in real loss. When 41-year-old Manuel Ruiz appeared in court 2 days later, the courtroom itself became another focal point for cameras. Other YouTubers showed up, some to support the victims, others to speak publicly about how shocked they were by what had happened. One creator admitted he thought the situation was just about content, about competition for viewers. He never imagined it would escalate into violence. The judge ordered Ruiz to be held without bail, charging him with 2 counts of open murder with use of a deadly weapon. But the legal process was only one part of the story. Online, the incident reopened debates that surface again and again whenever livestream culture collides with real-world consequences. At the center of those debates was a difficult truth. Live streaming does not just document behavior, it shapes it. When disagreements are performed in front of an audience, restraint can feel like weakness, escalation can feel rewarded. The presence of viewers, comments, and potential income can quietly push people to go further than they otherwise would. Several creators were quick to clarify that this tragedy did not represent all influencers. Most creators, they said, are not violent and do not seek confrontation. Still, even those voices acknowledged that the actions leading up to the incident were reckless. What makes this case especially haunting is how preventable it feels in hindsight. There were moments when someone could have walked away, moments when a camera could have been turned off, moments when rivalry could have been ignored instead of fed. Instead, the pressure to keep performing pushed events forward until there was no pause button left. For viewers who watched nearby live streams suddenly go silent that night, the horror was not just the violence itself, it was the realization that entertainment had masked danger, that what looked like content was actually real people, real emotions, and real risk. This incident now stands as a grim reminder of what can happen when online competition escapes the screen. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you. Nightmare Feelings crossed over 187,000 subscribers in 2025, and that's all because of you. Every single view, like, and share means the world to me. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. This year, we're setting our sights on 250,000 before April 2026. So if you enjoyed these videos and haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that button, join the community. Let's grow this together. Now back to the video. On a Thursday night in Cleveland, Ohio, a casual gathering among friends turned into a tragedy that unfolded in real time on social media, leaving viewers stunned and forcing difficult questions about livestream culture, responsibility, and how quickly entertainment can slip into irreversible harm. The group had gathered at the home of Stephen Lane, expecting nothing more than a relaxed evening. Drinks were shared, jokes were made, and at some point a Facebook live stream was started. Like many live streams, it seemed informal and unscripted, the kind of broadcast meant to feel spontaneous and authentic. But what made this night different was the presence of a firearm and the decision to bring it into the frame. As the live stream continued, the tone shifted from playful to unsettling. The camera captured conversations about the firearm, with those present attempting to demonstrate what they believed were safe handling practices. There were warnings spoken aloud, mixed with humor and alcohol-fueled confidence. Several people appeared to believe they understood the situation completely. The problem was that confidence replaced caution, and the live stream rewarded attention over restraint. At one point, the magazine was removed, and those on camera appeared to believe the firearm was no longer dangerous. What was not fully understood, or was dismissed in the moment, was that a single round could still remain in the chamber. This misunderstanding, combined with impaired judgment, created a situation where risk was treated casually because it was being performed for an audience. As viewers watched, the live stream became increasingly uncomfortable, and the guy holding the gun even threatened suicide. The line between demonstration and recklessness blurred. Comments and reactions were rolling in, turning a private mistake into a public spectacle. The camera did not encourage anyone to stop. It simply kept recording. Later that night, after the live stream had already shown warning signs, Stephen Lane lowered the firearm and pulled the trigger, believing it was safe. It was not. His friend Anthony Stanford was struck and collapsed. Emergency services were called, but the outcome was devastating. Anthony Stanford was pronounced dead from his injuries. Stanford was not just a name in a news report. He was a father to a 5-year-old daughter, a detail that hit especially hard as the story spread. What had started as a gathering between friends ended with a family forever changed, and a live stream that could never be erased from the internet's memory. Court records later stated that Lane was intoxicated at the time of the incident. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter, a legal acknowledgement that while there may not have been intent, the actions leading up to the moment carried serious consequences. The live stream itself became part of the evidence, documenting not just the final seconds but the mindset that led there. What makes this incident especially horrifying is not only the loss of life, but how clearly it demonstrates the dangers of turning real-world responsibility into content. Live streams create a false sense of control. When a camera is on, people often feel like they are performing, not living. Decisions are made faster. Warnings are brushed aside. The presence of viewers can make risky behavior feel validated rather than questioned. Alcohol played a role. Poor judgment played a role. But the live stream amplified everything. Instead of someone stepping in firmly to shut the situation down, the moment stretched on, fueled by attention and the belief that nothing could go wrong because nothing had gone wrong yet. This case also highlighted a broader issue with social platforms. Live features are designed to capture authenticity, but they rarely include safeguards that slow people down when danger is visible. By the time moderators or viewers recognize something is wrong, it is often too late. For those who watched that live stream, the shock lingered long after the video ended. It was a reminder that some mistakes cannot be undone, and that the internet does not distinguish between a joke and a life-changing moment. In the end, this was not just an accident. It was a convergence of poor decisions, misplaced confidence, and a culture that too often treats risky behavior as entertainment. A live stream meant to show friends enjoying a night together instead became a permanent record of how quickly ordinary moments can turn tragic when caution is replaced with performance. In the early months of 2016, a short piece of cell phone footage from the streets of Chicago began circulating online, and it captured something that was never meant to be content. A man walking in broad daylight had his phone out, recording himself as he moved through the city. Within seconds, the sound of panic entered the frame. He shouted for cover. The camera shook, and the moment he was struck was preserved not by a news crew but by his own device. Chicago police later confirmed that the man was a known gang member, and that he was left in critical condition. What made the incident especially disturbing was not just the shooting itself, but the way it unfolded through a personal camera. This was not a staged clip or a distant security feed. It was a first-person view of fear, confusion, and sudden violence, experienced exactly as the victim did. For viewers watching the footage circulate online, it felt uncomfortably intimate. The video quickly became part of a larger conversation, because it arrived at a time when Chicago was experiencing its most violent start to a year in nearly 2 decades. By the end of March, authorities reported 677 shootings, nearly double the number recorded during the same period the previous year. The cell phone clip was shocking, but it was not isolated. It became a symbol of how common these moments were becoming, and how easily they could now be recorded and shared. What made the situation even more unsettling was the wider impact on the community. Bullets do not choose targets, and while gangs and illegal weapons were blamed for much of the violence, innocent people were often caught in between. As the cell phone video continued to spread, city officials faced growing pressure. Chicago's police superintendent publicly vowed to confront what he described as a gun epidemic, because it is destroying the community. But for parents living in affected neighborhoods, those promises felt distant. Many said law enforcement was already present, yet the fear remained unchanged. One mother explained that she no longer allowed her 9-year-old child to walk down the street alone. Her reasoning was simple and chilling. A bullet does not carry a name. It travels until it finds someone. What makes this incident stand out in the history of live stream and real-time video is how it blurs the line between documentation and exposure. The man recording himself did not intend to capture a life-altering moment. He likely pressed record for personal reasons, never imagining it would become evidence of a larger crisis. Yet once the footage entered the online space, it took on a life of its own, replayed and analyzed by people far removed from the danger it represented. Unlike traditional broadcasts, cell phone recordings remove distance. There is no anchor, no commentary, no warning. Viewers are dropped directly into the moment. That immediacy can inform, but it can also overwhelm. In this case, it forced the public to confront the reality that violence was no longer something happening off-screen. It was happening in people's hands, on their phones, in real time. The Chicago video did not just show a shooting. It showed how easily everyday technology can turn ordinary movement into a permanent record of fear. It exposed a city struggling with violence, families living with constant caution, and an internet audience learning, once again, that when cameras are always on, tragedy no longer stays hidden. On April 2, 2023, a live stream meant to chase laughs and online attention turned into a moment that stunned viewers and reignited a long-running debate about prank culture, boundaries, and responsibility on social media. The incident centered around Tanner Cook, a YouTube personality known for filming prank-style content in public places. On that day, Cook and a companion entered a shopping mall in Virginia while recording. Their goal was simple in theory: approach strangers, provoke reactions, and capture uncomfortable moments that could later be edited into viral content. What made this encounter different was that it was unfolding live, with no buffer, no editing, and no chance to soften what happened next. Cook targeted a delivery driver, who was working inside the mall. The man repeatedly told Cook to stop and leave him alone. Instead of backing away, Cook continued to stand close, speaking into the camera and maintaining the confrontation.
What's that?
Hey, Dip, quit thinking about my twinkle.
No.
Hey, Dip, quit thinking about my
Get out of my face and call cops on it. Stop.
From the perspective of viewers, it looked like another prank pushing for a reaction. From the perspective of the man being filmed, it felt like a threat. Seconds later, the situation escalated. A firearm was discharged, and the live stream abruptly shifted from playful commentary to shock and confusion. The video could not be shown on many platforms due to content restrictions, but news coverage confirmed that Cook was seriously injured and rushed to the hospital. He survived. What made this case ripple far beyond the mall was not only the live stream itself, but what followed. The delivery driver, Alan Coley, was arrested and charged. Many expected a severe conviction, given that the shooting occurred in a public place. Instead, the trial produced an outcome that surprised much of the public. In November 2023, the jury found Coley not guilty of aggravated malicious wounding and the most serious firearm charges. He was convicted only on a lesser offense related to discharging a firearm indoors. The verdict forced an uncomfortable conversation. Jurors later indicated that the context mattered. The live stream showed a man being followed, filmed without consent, and ignored after clearly asking to be left alone. In their view, the prank did not feel harmless. It felt intimidating. For many viewers watching the original broadcast and its aftermath, the most disturbing part was not the moment of violence itself, but the chain of decisions that led there. The camera did not cause the confrontation, but it changed the behavior of everyone involved. The prank escalated because content rewards escalation, the audience encourages bigger reactions, and the person being filmed loses control over how they are portrayed in front of thousands of strangers. Even after recovering, Cook's public statements drew further criticism. He suggested the incident was part of a larger plan and indicated he would continue creating similar content. For critics, this response highlighted the darker side of livestream culture. When attention clicks and monetization become the goal, even near tragedy can be reframed as engagement. Platforms were also pulled into the discussion. Many commentators questioned why prank content that involves harassment remains easy to post and promote. Others pointed out that live streams, unlike edited videos, remove the safety net. There is no time to rethink a joke, no chance to cut away, and no editor to remove the moment when things go too far. This incident now stands as one of the clearest examples of how live streams can turn volatile in seconds. What begins as entertainment can cross into real-world danger when boundaries are ignored. The camera may be rolling, but the consequences are not virtual. In the end, no one walked away unchanged. One man was injured, another faced years of legal uncertainty, and thousands of viewers were left watching a reminder that not everyone wants to be content, and not every reaction is meant for the internet. On December 8, 2004, a concert that was meant to celebrate heavy music and loyal fans instead became one of the most traumatic moments ever connected to a live performance witnessed in real time. Damageplan had just stepped onto the stage at the Alrosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. It was early in the set, barely minutes into the opening song. The venue was packed with more than 200 fans, many of them there to see Daryl Abbott, better known as Dimebag Daryl, one of the most influential guitarists in modern metal. The atmosphere was loud, electric, and familiar to anyone who had ever attended a rock show. Then the routine of live music shattered. A man later identified as Nathan Gale rushed the stage. He was wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap, blending in just enough to move through the crowd without drawing attention. In a matter of seconds, what people first thought was a disturbance turned into something far more serious. Gale pulled out a firearm and ran directly toward Dimebag Daryl. For a brief moment, the crowd froze. Some fans believed it was a stunt or a misunderstanding. Others were simply stunned into silence. On stage, confusion erupted. Band members and nearby fans tried to react, but there was no time to process what was happening. Dimebag Daryl fell on the stage as people around him shouted for help and attempted to intervene. The situation escalated rapidly. Police later confirmed that after the initial attack, Gale moved behind a speaker, reloaded, and took a hostage. Panic spread through the venue as people scrambled for safety, unsure of where to run or how far the danger extended. In less than 5 minutes, 15 shots were fired inside the club. What stopped the violence was the swift action of Columbus police officer James Niggemeyer. Entering the venue amid chaos, he assessed the scene and made a split-second decision. One shot ended the threat. That single action prevented further loss of life. Moments later, Officer Niggemeyer stood in front of a camera, gun still in his hands, his expression reflecting the weight of what had just occurred. It was not a victory moment. It was a moment of grim necessity. Lives had been saved, but the cost was already devastating. Dimebag Daryl was pronounced dead at the scene. 3 others also lost their lives during the incident. The music stopped. The venue emptied. A night that was supposed to be remembered for sound and energy became defined by silence and shock. What makes this incident especially horrifying in the context of live events is how quickly it unfolded and how unprepared everyone was. There was no warning, no escalation that security could respond to in advance. The closeness of live performances, usually seen as a strength, became a vulnerability. Fans were not separated from danger by screens or distance. They were part of the moment as it happened. Although this was not a planned live stream in the modern sense, the aftermath and live news coverage placed the tragedy into public view almost immediately. Footage, eyewitness accounts, and breaking reports spread rapidly, creating a shared real-time experience for people far beyond the walls of the club. For many, it felt like watching a nightmare unfold alongside those who were physically present. The incident forced hard conversations within the music industry. Questions about venue security, artist safety, and emergency response took on new urgency. It also changed how fans viewed live shows. A space once associated with escape and expression was suddenly tied to vulnerability. For those who were there, the memory is permanent. A song that never finished, a performance that never resumed, and a reminder that live moments, whether streamed or witnessed in person, carry an unpredictability that cannot be edited away. Dimebag Daryl's legacy lives on through his music, his influence, and the respect he earned from generations of musicians. But December 8, 2004, remains a stark example of how quickly celebration can turn into tragedy when danger enters a live space. It stands as one of the most horrifying incidents connected to real-time performance, not because of spectacle, but because of how real, sudden, and irreversible it was. On February 12, 2010, a routine Olympic training session turned into one of the most haunting moments ever witnessed during a live global broadcast. Nodar Kumaritashvili was a 21-year-old Olympic luger representing the Republic of Georgia, competing on the world's biggest stage at the Winter Games in Vancouver. Like many athletes from smaller nations, he arrived carrying the weight of personal sacrifice, national pride, and a lifelong dream. That morning in Whistler, British Columbia, he was taking part in a training run on the men's singles luge track, an event that was being covered and monitored live as part of Olympic preparations. The Whistler Sliding Center was already known among athletes as exceptionally fast. Some competitors had quietly raised concerns in the days leading up to the event, noting how little margin for error the track allowed. Still, training continued, and Kumaritashvili took his sled down the course for what would be his final run. As he approached the final turn, his speed was approaching 90 miles per hour. In a split second, control was lost. Kumaritashvili was thrown from his sled and propelled beyond the track's protective barrier. The incident unfolded so quickly that even seasoned officials struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. Emergency crews responded immediately. Medical personnel rushed to the scene and worked to revive him before transporting him to the hospital. Despite those efforts, Kumaritashvili was later pronounced dead. News of his passing spread across Olympic venues and living rooms around the world almost instantly. The shock was overwhelming. Olympic International Committee President Jacques Rogy appeared before the press, visibly shaken, pausing to gather himself before speaking. He described the organization as heartbroken beyond words. Officials from the Vancouver Organizing Committee echoed that sentiment, extending condolences to Kumaritashvili's family, teammates, and country, emphasizing that he had come to the Games to pursue an Olympic dream. What made this incident especially disturbing was not only the loss of a young athlete, but the context in which it occurred. This was not an obscure event happening in isolation. It unfolded within the tightly monitored environment of the Olympics, where every run, every turn, and every outcome is observed, analyzed, and often broadcast. Viewers around the world learned of the accident in real time, transforming a training session into a moment of collective grief. Athletes and coaches gathered near the finish area, waiting silently for updates. Many described the atmosphere as unreal. Some had just completed runs of their own. Others were preparing to go next. The realization that the track they were about to face had claimed a life settled heavily over everyone present. The men's luge competition was scheduled to begin the following day, but uncertainty loomed. Training for the remainder of the day was cancelled, and officials announced a full investigation to ensure the safety of the course. Discussions immediately began about whether changes to the track were necessary. Kumaritashvili's death reignited long-standing concerns about safety in high-speed Olympic sports. While some experts initially defended the track's design, others pointed out that several athletes had already crashed during training, and that competitors from less funded programs often had fewer opportunities to practice on such demanding courses. For many viewers, this was the first time the danger behind the sport became impossible to ignore. Luge, often seen as sleek and thrilling, suddenly revealed its unforgiving reality. There were no dramatic replays replayed endlessly, no sensational commentary. Instead, there was a shared silence and a sobering reminder that Olympic glory comes with real risk. In the aftermath, changes were made to the track, including adjustments to reduce speed. But for many, those changes came too late. Kumaritashvili's name became permanently linked to conversations about athlete safety, fairness, and the responsibility of global sporting organizations. What should have been remembered as the beginning of an Olympic journey instead became a moment the world will never forget. A young athlete, a live international stage, and a reminder that when events unfold in real time, there is no way to look away from their consequences. Gregory Wayne Plitt Jr. served in the United States Army and later attended Ranger School, one of the toughest leadership programs in the military. When he left the service in 2004, he carried the same belief system into civilian life. The body can do more than the mind thinks it can. Discomfort is not a warning sign. It is training. That mentality fit perfectly in the fitness world, and his rise was fast. A cover on Muscle and Fitness turned into a career that eventually included hundreds of magazine appearances. What made Greg different was the way he sold the message. He did not present the gym as vanity. He presented it as a rehearsal for life. He talked about clarity, self-belief, and work ethic as if they were muscles too. His training was intense, sometimes theatrical, and always designed to look like effort you could feel through the screen. Over time, that same drive pushed him into bigger projects. By the early 2010s, he was building programs, filming motivational content, and taking on brand deals. He also became known for a certain kind of authenticity. Then came the shoot that changed everything. In early January 2015, Greg was filming a promotional video for a sports energy drink. He wanted something that looked real, not staged. He planned to shoot near the Metrolink tracks to capture a visual metaphor, running alongside a moving train, keeping pace with pressure, staying ahead of fear. It was the kind of dramatic symbolism that works in fitness marketing, and it fit his brand perfectly. The problem is that real life does not care about symbolism. On January 17, 2015, witnesses and police later reported that Greg misjudged the speed of an approaching train while filming. At around 4:10 p.m., he was struck by a southbound Metrolink train, and he was pronounced dead at the scene, before first responders could change the outcome. The shock did not come only from the loss. It came from the contrast. A man celebrated for precision, control, and pushing limits had taken a risk that left no room for correction. And in a content era where cameras reward bigger stunts and sharper visuals, that risk felt uncomfortably familiar. The same drive that inspires millions can also whisper that one more step, one more take, one more dramatic shot is worth it. Tributes poured in from celebrities, athletes, veterans, and ordinary people who credited Greg with helping them fight through difficult seasons. His funeral in Baltimore drew a large crowd, and in the years that followed, his legacy continued to spread through reposted clips and quoted lines. But the lesson his final day left behind is not only about motivation, it is about boundaries. Because when real danger is treated like a backdrop, the camera does not protect you, it only records what happens next. For years, Operator's channel had been a strange kind of spectacle. He wasn't famous for polished editing or big productions. He was famous for pushing the edge of discomfort, especially in freezing conditions. He would skate across thin ice, dive into icy water, and roll around in the snow in ways that made viewers ask the same question every time: how is he still okay? The performance was built on daring, but also on a quirky, chaotic charm that made his audience feel like they were watching a fearless uncle who never grew out of his wild streak. As his following climbed past the 1 million mark and eventually reached over 1.3 million subscribers, the stunts grew into a routine his viewers expected. The shock value became part of the brand. In videos, he was known for doing things that looked reckless, including drinking large amounts of alcohol on camera, and even claiming to drink engine oil. He did include warnings in his descriptions, telling viewers not to interpret what he drank as promotion. But the bigger issue was not branding. It was how an audience can slowly become normalized to danger when it's wrapped in humor. Just a few days before the tragedy, Apator posted a video titled, "I am not dead. I am 57 today." It sounds like a joke, the kind creators make when they disappear for a while and fans start worrying. But in hindsight, the title reads like an eerie foreshadowing, not because he predicted anything, but because creators often feel pressure to reassure people, to keep the show moving, to prove they are fine even when the risks keep stacking up. That day near the town of Kongsberg, he went to a frozen lake to film himself ice skating. Before he began, he reportedly sent a text to the person he lived with, saying everything was okay and that he was excited to capture good footage. That detail matters because it shows the mindset many creators fall into. You treat the stunt like a normal shoot. You plan it like content. You think about angles, not outcomes. Then, the ice gave way. He fell through into the freezing water and tried to climb back out, but the edge of the ice would not hold. Instead of offering a stable surface, it kept cracking and breaking under his weight. The problem with thin ice is that it doesn't fail once. It fails repeatedly, and every attempt to escape can make the situation worse by widening the break. Rescue teams were called. Divers eventually reached him, pulled him out, and he was transported by air ambulance to a nearby hospital. Doctors attempted to save him, but he did not survive. Reports stated that he had been in the water too long. For viewers, the loss was hard to process because Apator's entire online identity was built around surviving the cold. He had done it so many times that it felt almost impossible for it to end this way. But that feeling is exactly what makes this incident so disturbing. Familiarity can trick people into believing a dangerous situation has become safe. Repetition creates false confidence, both for the creator and for the audience watching. This is one of the dark traps of extreme content. When you repeatedly flirt with danger and walk away, the survival becomes part of the entertainment. Viewers stop seeing risk as risk. They see it as a reliable formula. The algorithm rewards it. The comments celebrate it. And slowly, the creator becomes trapped in a role where backing down feels like disappointing the people who made them famous. In the end, Apitor's story is not just about one frozen lake. It is about the way internet fame can turn risky behavior into routine, until the day reality refuses to cooperate. A creator can plan the shot, check the lighting, and send a text saying everything is fine, but nature doesn't care about confidence, and the camera doesn't offer protection. It only captures the moment when the line finally breaks. On December 13, 2023, a moment meant to be filled with worship, music, and collective joy turned into one of the most heartbreaking incidents ever witnessed during a live broadcasted performance. Pedro Henrique was a rising star in Brazil's gospel music scene, widely admired for his powerful voice and deeply emotional delivery. At just 30 years old, he had already built a devoted following, not only through live concerts but also through social media and live-streamed events that allowed fans to experience his music in real time. That night, he was performing at a religious concert in Feira de Santana, Bahia, an event attended by worshippers in person and followed by many others through live recordings shared online. As Pedro sang a song whose title translates to, "It's going to be so beautiful," nothing seemed out of place. His voice was steady. His presence was strong. Those who knew him described him as full of energy and faith, someone who brought warmth to every stage he stood on. Then, without warning, he collapsed. The suddenness of the moment stunned everyone. Musicians nearby froze. Members of the audience struggled to understand what they were seeing. What had been a moment of praise instantly shifted into confusion and fear. The live stream captured the shock in the room, not through dramatic visuals but through silence, movement, and the abrupt halt of music. It was the kind of moment where reality interrupts performance in the most irreversible way. Emergency assistance was sought immediately, but Pedro Henrique did not recover. Initial reports suggested a possible cardiac event, though medical authorities did not release a definitive cause right away. What remained clear was that a young artist, in the middle of doing what he loved most, was gone. News of his passing spread rapidly across Brazil and beyond, amplified by the very platforms that had helped build his career. Clips from the performance circulated online, often stopping just before the collapse, out of respect. Fans who had watched him live struggled to process how quickly joy had turned into loss. For many, the fact that this happened during a live performance made it even harder to accept. There was no distance, no time buffer, no editing. It happened as it happened. Pedro's life offstage added another layer of heartbreak. He had recently become a father. His wife, Suelen Barreto, had shared moments of their newborn daughter, Zoe. Just weeks earlier, friends and colleagues described him as a devoted husband and a loving parent, someone whose faith guided not just his music but his daily life. Tributes poured in from fellow artists, church leaders and fans, many of whom spoke less about his talent and more about his kindness and joy. His record label released a statement expressing deep sorrow, remembering his final moments on stage and the impact he had within the Christian community. They described him as a happy young man, someone whose presence lifted others. Social media became a space of collective mourning, where faith-based messages mixed with disbelief and grief. What makes this incident especially haunting in the context of livestream history is not only the loss itself, but the way it unfolded publicly. Live streams are often celebrated for bringing people closer, for making moments more accessible, but they also remove the protective distance between life and audience. When something goes wrong, viewers are not watching a replay. They are witnessing a real human emergency unfold in real time. Pedro Henrique's death highlighted that uncomfortable reality. A live stream that was meant to share hope instead became a reminder of how fragile life can be, even in spaces associated with faith and positivity. There was no spectacle, no shock-driven reaction, just a quiet collective realization that something sacred had been interrupted. His music continues to live on, replayed by fans who now hear it through a different lens, not as background worship, but as a legacy. For those who watched that night, the memory remains heavy. A song about beauty ended in silence, and a live stream meant to connect people became a shared moment of grief that still echoes long after the cameras stopped rolling. On September 14, 2020, a live stream that was expected to show another quiet moment of rural life instead became one of the most disturbing incidents ever linked to live online broadcasting in China. Lamu was a well-known creator on Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok, where she had built a large following by sharing simple, peaceful scenes from the countryside. Her videos focused on farming, daily routines, and nature. Viewers praised her authenticity and calm presence. Unlike many influencers, she avoided heavy styling and presented a version of life that felt grounded and sincere. For many followers, her live streams were a form of comfort. That evening, Lamu attempted to go live from her home in Sichuan province. According to reports, the broadcast had only just begun when the screen suddenly went dark. There was no explanation, no goodbye, and no warning. At first, viewers assumed it was a technical issue. Live streams fail all the time. But this interruption was different. Lamu never returned to the screen. Authorities later confirmed that during the live stream attempt, Lamu was attacked by her former husband, identified by his surname Tang, who allegedly forced his way into her home. Emergency services transported her to a local hospital before transferring her to Sichuan Provincial People's Hospital for intensive treatment. Doctors stated that her injuries were severe. After 2 weeks of medical care, Lamu passed away on September 30, 2020. She was 30 years old. As the investigation unfolded, a troubling history emerged. Family members told local media that Tang had allegedly been violent in the past. Lamu had divorced him earlier that year. The couple shared 2 children, and custody was split. According to reports, Tang later threatened harm unless she remarried him. Under pressure, she returned briefly, but eventually fled again when the situation did not improve. Relatives stated that concerns about abuse had been raised before. They said incidents were reported, but no meaningful protection followed. After the final separation, Tang reportedly gained custody of both children. Not long after, the live stream incident occurred. Police detained Tang on suspicion of intentional homicide, and an investigation was launched. The public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On Weibo, hashtags related to Lamu's death were viewed tens of millions of times within days. Many users expressed grief, but anger quickly followed. Questions flooded social media. Where was help when warnings were raised? Why did it take a public tragedy for attention to follow? And how many similar cases never reached the spotlight? Lamu was not broadcasting danger. She was attempting to share the same kind of content her audience had seen many times before. Yet the live stream placed the moment in real time, collapsing the boundary between private life and public viewing. For a brief moment, the internet became aware that something was wrong, but it was powerless to intervene. The sudden blackout during the stream became symbolic. It represented how quickly safety can disappear, even for creators who seem far removed from controversy or conflict. It also revealed a darker truth about visibility. Being seen online does not guarantee protection offline. In some cases, it may even increase vulnerability. Lamu's death also intersected with broader legal debates in China. Around that time, a new 30-day waiting period before finalizing divorces was being introduced. While the law excludes families with documented abuse histories, advocacy groups warned that many victims never receive official recognition. Lamu's case became part of that national conversation, cited as an example of what can happen when warning signs are missed or dismissed. In the end, this was more than a horrifying livestream incident. It was a reminder that behind carefully framed content are real people carrying real struggles. A livestream meant to show peace instead revealed silence, and that silence continues to echo for viewers who remember the moment the screen went dark and never came back on. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you found this video informative, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what we drop next. We cover stories like this almost every day, and trust me, you don't want to be left behind. If you can't wait until the next upload, there are more videos popping up on your screen in just a few seconds. Click one and keep watching. Until then, take care. I'm out.